Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to the last of this week's shows about property. Now, look, I'm going to start off immediately with, I was going to say an apology, but it's not really an apology. As many of you are aware, today was to be the deadline for someone in Greenwich Council to step up to the plate and explain their position, or at least communicate. Now, on the one hand, I'm sorry to say no one has. But on the other side, unfortunately, Steve has had a bereavement in the family, which means he can't be with us. And more importantly, his mind will not be focused on these affairs, nor should they be. So I've taken it upon myself to extend by 1 week. I've also been in communication with someone who I'll not mention her name as yet, who says she may well make it onto the show, and she will add a lot of extra gravitas to our position because of her long and varied association with these kind of matters. I'm not going to elaborate still further because she hasn't necessarily confirmed 100% she will be there. I believe she'll be audio only, but as I said, her attendance will improve our standing. It can only solidify what we are. But first of all, let me introduce you to my sweet, amazing companion, Hamish McClay of Search Convey, whose idea this was in the first place. So in many ways, this is all your fault, Hamish. What these property shows have always been about, all four of them, that's Property Matters on a Tuesday, that's Ipsa Kind of Magic on a Wednesday, that Property Quorum on a Thursday, and lead in, and into the fight goes Cladding Matters on a Friday. What they've always been about is, I think Hamish would agree, education. Our role here is to try and lift the stone under which these things seem to hide and show them to the world so you can see them for what they are. And normally what we are here doing is helping Steve in his good fight. So before we go much further, Hamish, it's very sad that the situation that Steve finds himself in, but we must keep sticking our nose to the sticking stone, as it was, sticking point, and keep pushing forward, must we not?
I think so, and our thoughts are with Steve and with Steve's family at this particular sort of time, because it's an important thing. It's thing that's been in the background. Of course, when you've got something like that worrying you, as basically he's had to undergo all of the difficulties he had with Greenwich Council in his fight, and it should never have been a fight, because what Steve has been doing from the very, very start is look after the residents, because he is chair of the Residents Association at Greenwich, and therefore he stands in a particular position where his sense of responsibility. So today we speak about accountability, responsibility, and a few other aspects of that nature, because what brought this whole matter together was, of course, meeting Steve when we were speaking about property matters sort of generally. We came to this sort of situation that it was ongoing. It was basically matters, up-to-date matters that were going on with the building industry and conveyancing and that particular side of things, and bumped into sort of Steve, and he was just saying, well, yeah, it's not just what's happening at the moment, it's what's happened in the past. And we came across this particular sort of situation that was serious matters with the cladding, and we started the investigation. And as a consequence, we brought out this song, which you all hear each week as we actually sort of come to actually sort of present ourselves to you, which speaks about big bad builders. And we spoke about Barrett, because Barrett are responsible for the building of Royal Artillery Quays, but they're also responsible for a large number. They are the only master builder as nominated by this current sort of government. in the United Kingdom. But we, as we well know, 33% of their properties, or sorry, was it 30% of their properties? I'm not too sure.
Shall we call it approximately a third?
Which is a good way of looking at it, because neither Gareth and I, well, Gareth is probably better at numbers, which is a bit unfortunate because I used to teach maths. But
we'll gloss over that.
Yes, but that's definitely another story entirely. However, we stuck. The big problem with Barrett's is they were responsible. We thought this was a serious issue, that they're responsible 1/3 of the buildings which they've actually created, and I'm assuming we're speaking about sort of multi-story or several story and above sort of types of buildings.
Right.
They were under sort of under concern of being inspected, being actually requiring a remediation, and we thought that was seriously bad. And then we find out that as one of them, as many as 67% of them. So there's definitely builders there, but we got stuck with Barrett's because Barrett's were responsible for Royal Artillery Quays. And whilst we started going through these things, certain aspects came to mind. And one of them was, as a consequence of Grenfell and the fallout from Grenfell and the investigation, then what we had, of course, was the Safety Act, the Building Safety Act of 2022. They came up with standards which they felt they had two different types of standards. There were standards for new build properties, and there were standards for the remediation. And they made up this particular sort of. It wasn't a standard as such. It was called actually PAS 9980, and I can't remember what the PAS stands for now. But anyway, the person responsible for this, we actually found out, is this a little bit suspect, to sort of say the least. But we haven't heard from him in a while for good reason. However, what it was one of those will we, won't we type. So it created a situation where somebody could make their mind up, oh, well, we won't bother with this, we'll do that instead. It wasn't actually necessarily making the place safe. It was still putting it at risk. We still created this situation where insurance was not possible at a reasonable sort of rate for the property. Mortgages were not necessarily attainable. So, I mean, we got to this particular sort of stage and we found out the standard of remediation was pretty grim. And that was, if you like, almost the sort of first phase that we'd actually got to. So it wasn't just Barrett's that were responsible for this. We brought in this particular standard, which was failing as well. And that was a good point to where it came to, wasn't it, Gareth?
Yes. The truth of the matter is there's been a number of areas where really, in this particular case, and also we can make a general case, Royal Artillery Quays in particular, of which Steve Day, who runs the building safety scheme.org, who's normally with us, they've been let down tremendously. First of all, let's start at the beginning. When it was built, we have paperwork in black and white stating that the council, Greenwich Council, knew that it was deficient, not up to the building standards of that time when it was built. However, later on down the line, it has transpired that if we could have a clear steer from them, from the current leadership, that was the position. We could put pressure, or rather Steve could put, and other members of his supporters could put pressure on the builders to stand by them, make good, and reparations, but not just small amounts of reparations or the bare minimum, which it appears that this rather faulty, incomplete standard of PAS 9980 allows for, but completely, because on the on the stair shafts, there are materials stuck on there which have the similar flammability to firelighters that they are at present unwilling to take off. And it's been one excuse after another. There was, what was it? There was a whole range of excuses. First of all, why should they? Second of all, it came up that they might disturb pigeons. And then thirdly, and most recently, that it might be too heavy what they replace it with. Whatever it is, they're desperately trying to wriggle out of replacing them. But the only way that we could get the builders to do it properly and also make it so that they get a good enough safety rating that these domiciles could then be insured would be if they did a complete removal of those panels and also put in the long awaited, completely missed, not even on the plans, fire safety doors at the base of same said shaft. It's a complete travesty, and it rolls on and on. Now, the one thing that Steve and everyone concerned has been looking for is for Greenwich to stand behind them and say that they are justly fighting. But Greenwich issued a proclamation that A, there was nothing to see here, and B, they were now standing neutral and they couldn't be involved in it. And also they said, but, safety has gotten better over the years. So therefore, they can't be held responsible, that's the builders, Barrett, for having breached safety schemes. But they were breaching it at the time of building. That's the point. So I've got an image to put up for you, which is an image because Steve usually provides me with images. And all I'm going to do is going to share my WhatsApp screen. Hopefully that's going to be good enough. Let's see if we can do this. So share the screen. Let's try that one. Let's have a look at that. There we go. Is that readable?
It could be with a bit larger if we could.
If I'm going to do that larger, I'm going to have to stop sharing it and bring it down as. But talk a little bit about that fight, where we've got to, if you would, Hamish.
Well, the situation is what we've sort of found, because of the statement of Greenwich Council, it has allowed Barrett to carry out, and they've actually started doing it now. So Steve, within this sort of situation, he's actually sort of going through as well, and all of the residents of the same sort of tower block are currently shrouded in our sort of, if you like, our sort of wondrous summer with all of this heat and the situation. They are shrouded with a cover. They've got scaffolding all over their building. They can't open their buildings properly. They've got people wandering around on the scaffolding outside, disturbing them at various different times of the day. Where is the privacy and all of this particular sort of thing? So they are going through this experience. We found there's a better alternative. We're not speaking about that this week, but they've decided what they've decided. They're going through this, and it's going to be there for the next 12 months, I gather, possibly a little bit longer.
Horrendous.
It matters not. But I mean, the trouble with the situation is, after this is
at Royal Borough of Greenwich, I doubt it was Anthony himself, but him, his team, and we have to use him as the figure point. The evidence you sent me doesn't exist. I'm publishing this council position on our website. So stated on the website, there is no evidence that building at that it was unlawful at the time of building. So the Residents Association presented the information again. Then Anthony Okereke wrote back, no, doesn't exist, and I don't need to justify anything. Stephanie Barwise, KC, also who is the woman who pretty much ran the investigation at Grenfell, and therefore is very, very keenly aware of these topics, stated the optics of a council not taking potential life-threatening defects seriously are troubling. That's what you call red flag. And the operator said nothing. He doesn't have to respond to a Grenfell Casey. Doesn't have to respond to anyone, it seems. So the residents, once again, sent all the evidence over, black and white. And because Steve was sending them over, and because some of his team are female, the legal team threatened Steve with harassment charges, saying he was harassing women. He wasn't. He wasn't at all. He was just representing the same statement he has done up until now. So therefore, what they latterly asked for is a meeting so they can present the evidence, so there can be no equivocation, no refuting it. It will be there in front of them in black and white. And once again, Anthony Okereke and his team, and also he's given instruction to his CEO to decline any requests for meetings. This is a really weird form of stalemate and seems not just unlawful, but also blatantly unfair, wouldn't you say, Hamish?
Very much so. And what we cause, because the council really said, they said this statement over 12 months ago. They said it last May and said there was no evidence, which was a sad thing, because had they actually retracted that statement, there would have been fuller remediation actually carried out. But because the council has held back, certain things have come to pass. Discussions are now being made about really the quality of that standard, PS 9980. Is it sufficiently, is that any good anyway? And that is very, very dubious, because the majority of people are actually disagreeing with that standard as being in any way adequate as a form of remediation. Now, this is impactful throughout so many other buildings throughout the United Kingdom, because many buildings have been remediated to that standard, and many are about to be remediated to that standard, which makes them still unsafe because of fire risk. So really, there's very little sort of change there, but it's fallen into that. So there's discussions going on through Parliament relative to that. But there's also a bill coming out very shortly, which will actually sort of make it very, very difficult for councillors who misguide the public through what they say, because it has been established in the past that there has been evidence that certain statements have been made by the police and councils and even MPs for that matter, which have actually been totally untrue, and they've misguided the public. And this new bill will make it it's all retrospectful as well. They will actually sort of nominate those particular people responsible, and they can be taken to court and held to be responsible for failing to notify the public of the truth, and they can get served up to sort of two years in prison. And I hope this ends up being a classical case. It's called the Hillsborough. They're calling it the Hillsborough Bill, or it will be the Hillsborough Law when it comes out.
Right.
I don't know the appropriate.
And the poignant part of it is the word candor. That is, and it's retrospective candor. If it's found that a public advisory body, such as the council, have made statements that are patently untrue, and more importantly, that they knew to be untrue and could be proved as such, I believe there's a potentially a mandatory prison sentence involved.
Yes, this is what, and in fact, this is where we get to. I mean, it's taken that long for actually sort of happen, because the Hillsborough event was very much, further back historically, which is why they're making the whole thing, if you like, is going to be retrospective, because certain things were said by certain people which were totally untrue. But it was by the, if you like, a series of mistakes. Mistakes were caused at the Grenfell fire, so obviously people are going to be held responsible there. And in Greenwich, those councillors, this is why the ultimatum was given by Steve.
Because they won't
the head of
come,
this
they
Hillsborough
won't come
lobby.
to the table. They won't talk to us.
That's right. Instead of the Hillsborough Bill, when the Hillsborough Bill comes to become law, if those councillors are named, which they will be, because they're all in full agreement with what the sort of head councillors sort of said, and we don't know who's decided, who made that opinion, who's come, because they aren't qualified in any way to make an opinion anyway. To my knowledge, none of them are experienced in building safety. They might actually be holding a position that they're responsible for safety and all the rest of it, but they aren't experienced. They don't have any qualifications to do it. They're not qualified to do anything, it would appear, other than to sort of agree with what their leader says. Thou shalt do what I tell you, type touch.
Right. I've got some images I want to put up. This is in no particular order. This was the fire safety report that Steve had to crowd fund to be able to get a fire safety engineering, because there was refused to otherwise, to show that the those blocks that were still stuck on, even after, if you were firing PAS 1990, that's all there. You see that?
Oh yeah, we can't read it.
Okay,
can't read it at the moment.
Okay, well, it says the independent engineering review is undertaken of the retained wall type 3 aluminium spandrel infill panels incorporating, and this is stuff, XPS insulation, forming part of the protective stair enclosure at the Royal Artillery Quays. Well, the original report adopted an appropriate risk-based methodology in accordance to PAS 9980. This review has identified a number of building-specific factors, including the single protected stair arrangement, the retained combustible XPS insulation, and the absence of verified fire performance information for the glazed stair enclosure. And it turns out that the glass in the glazed stair enclosure is safety glass. If that were to shatter, it would come down like shards. It would potentially be life-threatening, quite horrendous. So that's one thing. I'm just going to remove that. I've got a couple more. Let me just quickly bring them up. This, oh, hang on. There we go. So this is Alison Hills, senior solicitor at Fletcher's. Whole situation truly baffling. The evidence is there in black and white across multiple sources, and I've also personally seen myself. How can they continue to maintain their position and deny that this exists? It's just unacceptable, and continue to put countless lives at risk. And the former premier of Victoria in Australia himself, Ted himself, not a builder, one went to surveyor, thank you. The Royal Borough of Greenwich Council continues to demonstrate its collective lack of ethics, transparency, and humanity. The facts are clear. The relevant buildings were non-compliant when built. The building pose a material fire risk. The council continues to deny this. The council is jeopardizing the safety of thousands of its residents. In the event of a tragic fire, it is likely that the councillors could face claims of criminal liability. But it would be too late for residents. Unacceptable, delinquent, dangerous, shameful. Absolutely ridiculous that they are put in that position. I think we need to wind the show up now, but next week we have delayed things. our deadline for you counsellors to step forward and state that you are in fact on the side of ethics, on the side of sanity, is next Friday, when Steve will be back with us.
And one word I would add to that: truth.
Truth. And to quote many films, the truth shall set you free. There's no higher standard for any counsellor to be held to than the truth. And I would heartily suggest that this becomes part of your own mantra. The truth shall set you free. Hamish, thank you very much for facilitating this. To all you watching, I've seen there's been a bunch of you. Thank you very much. Hopefully next week we'll have a special guest as well. But until then, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars. And in these troubled times, please do look after that mental health. Bye-bye now.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll promise you the moon, but they would